Good evening, folks. This is Casey Reed with Doses of Reality, and we're going to have a little session of red pill therapy tonight. I am going to be discussing a speech that was made by Danielle Gross at the last West Shore School Board meeting on Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Now, I was not aware of her speech until more recently. We had left the meeting early because it was over 4 hours. So we didn't stay for the whole thing. We had other things we had to do. But I came across her speech recently after, reviewing the ones that were made after we left. And there are some things that need to be addressed and discussed. So we're going to do that here. Now, I'm going to play part of Danielle Gross's speech here in a second. It's not going to be the whole speech. It's going to be, just in part to particularly focus on the area that she discussed that I want to address. And then because she went on to other matters aren't as important. So, without further ado, here is what Miss Gross had to say in part.
I'll try to be quick. Since it keeps coming up, I just want to note to people at home who might not have any idea what some folks are mentioning. Someone leaked some materials from the deposition from the Sunshine Act, and I certainly couldn't point any fingers, but it does not benefit anyone other than the folks who are being sued from leaking those materials. So somehow it got released from someone. Put that up first. Secondly, I wish Mrs. Thomas hadn't left because my first comment is directed specifically.
Okay, folks. So, I apologize for the poor quality of the video. It's not coming through as well as I'd like. But if you want to see it, her speech is, of course, on the West Shore School District website if you just look up that meeting. And hers is toward the end with general comments. So you can see the whole thing with better quality there. But you did hear at least a little bit of it there. And long story short, Ms. Gross is upset about the release of some text messages that recently exposed the corruption and bribery attempts of one of the school board members to the other. Now, to put this in full context, there's two things I got to put on the screen here quick to show you. Oh, excuse me, that's not it. Here we go. The main difference between discovery papers and deposition papers is discovery papers refer to the exchange of documents and information. Deposition papers are interviews of potential witnesses who may appear in trial. And then put this up. Not illegal. In Pennsylvania, sharing discovery papers is not illegal. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has confirmed that the discovery rule is only a narrow exception to the statute of limitations. Discovery material is not filed with the court. And the reason these have to be brought up and mentioned is because Miss Gross is upset. She's majoring on the minors and minoring on the majors here. She's upset about the release of text messages, which, by the way, are available to the public once you put them out there, that exposed what one board member did with another. And this is in reference to a vote that was taken earlier this year involving the change of the solicitor. And it was a 5-4 decision to replace the old solicitor with the one we have now. And in an attempt to sway the vote the other way, one of the members on the four votes that were against it sent a text message, and probably did more than that, which is not officially on record, to one of the five on the other side, that if he changed his vote to support them, they would work with him to make him the new president of the school board. Now, to his credit, he did not take the bait. He did not involve himself in the corruption or give in to the temptation. But what the other board member did was not only highly unethical, but also illegal, and is grounds for potential not only removal from office, but in worst case scenario, being criminally charged. But however, Ms. Gross is not at all bothered by this illegal, corrupt activity. No. She's bothered by the fact that it was put out there, and somehow implying that the person who made this public is the one in the wrong, or somehow doing something illegal, which is not the case. Public documents, such as what was put up by a text and then exposed by a media figure who was given to it by a confidential source, that's perfectly okay. What you're not allowed to do is put depositions out there, especially when they're still going on, because some people want some of the depositions to be made public involving the case, which they can't do because there's still people to depose. And as long as that's going on, it has to remain basically what we call classified. Um, so anyway, but it's interesting, not at all surprising, but interesting that that's the perspective Ms. Gross takes on this, and it further illustrates a problem we have with the media in general. For those who are not aware, Ms. Gross isn't just any average Joe. She is a very highly influential locally political lobbyist as well as media personality. I don't know exactly what her full or part-time jobs are, but I know she's heavily involved with most, if not all, of the main legacy corporate media sources in Cumberland, York, and Dauphin counties, like the local Fox News affiliates, the local ABC, NBC, and CBS affiliates, the York Dispatch, the Penn Live, the Harrisburg Patriot. She has connections to all of them and has even written articles for them. And she's also very active politically on a regular full-time basis, especially with issues regarding the West Shore School District. Ms. Gross is in part responsible for the giant mobs of left-wing activists you see coming in on the school board meetings. She's not the only one, by the way. There's a few other ones as well, with connections and mass communication abilities. Two of them are current board members, by the way, and heck, I'll name them. It's Abigail Tierney and Adam Trone. They're part of that too. But there's a few others, lawyers and so forth. But they are the ones that get the large mobs to show up at the meetings to basically intimidate and try to bully the board members into voting a certain way. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. And one of the times they were not successful is one of the issues that they have been very vengeful with, including Danielle Gross. And this goes back to earlier in the year when they changed the solicitor. Beforehand, Danielle Gross had actually showed up at one of the meetings, basically threatening the board, telling them I can get hundreds of people involved overnight, telling them, if you if you don't make the quote right decision, it could affect you and professionally. And indeed, she tried to do that, particularly with Mrs. Brenda Cox and Mrs. Kelly Brent, two of the board members, when they didn't vote the way Danielle Gross was trying to bully them into voting. They personally try to destroy the businesses of their husbands. Their husbands are both doctors. Mrs. Brent's is an optometrist. Mrs. Cox is a physician, and she actually boycotted their businesses and was going around getting people to cancel their accounts with them and leave the practices. And many of them were in elderly citizens' homes. And Lord only knows what Miss Gross is telling these people, because there's nothing about Dr. Brent or Dr. Cox or their wives who are on the school board. There's nothing about them that you could say honestly to any elderly citizen that would convince them that, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that practice. I got to leave it. So Lord knows what she was saying. It couldn't have been anything honest. And I do know that Miss Gross has a history of pardon the pun, gross dishonesty. 3 years ago, she was present at a press conference that was over in the Capitol building in Harrisburg. And it wasn't in the main rotunda, but it was in one of the other lobby areas similar to the rotunda. And it was a press conference called by Representative Barbara Gleim and some Moms for Liberty advocates. And long story short, it was addressing the problem of the pornographic novels in the schools. And they had dozens, and I mean dozens of blowups, giant blowups of actual cartoon illustrations accompanied by very graphic literary content that were in several of the books that were in the schools. And each one of the books they were showing were books that were within hundreds of school districts all over Pennsylvania and thousands nationwide. And it was put on full display with a list of where they were found and where else they were accompanied. So this was, this is what they were exposing and they were speaking out against, and we're still trying to rein that problem in. But Miss Gross, who was present there, wrote an article about it. She even mentioned yours truly by name. Now, I didn't speak there or anything, but I'd spoken at a school board meeting before that, and my speech there she took issue with. But she had actually stated in the article that these people were addressing pornography in the schools, although there's no evidence that this is occurring. There she was in that room, standing surrounded not only by evidence but conclusive proof that yes, this is happening on a mass scale. I'm sorry, and then had the unmitigated gall and audacity to write an article stating that there's no evidence for the very issue that these people were addressing. That's the level of dishonesty and deception that we're talking about here. And the corruption. She's a very, again, vindictive, malicious person with the way she personally tries to destroy people's lives, for doing the right thing. And right now, she and some of her cronies, what they want to see happen is that the person or people, I don't know if it was one or more than one person, but the person or people that exposed these messages to the public, exposing the corruption of the people that she's allied with. She wants to see them doxxed. They want so badly to find out who it was, so they can try to go after them, get them canceled, get them to lose their job, get them to have, if they have a business, to have it boycotted and go bankrupt. That's what they're after here. Okay, or to even press a frivolous lawsuit. If even though they know they can't do anything criminally, they might try some ridiculous civil suit. But they're trying to find out who it was so they can destroy this person. I'm going to say, because I don't know who it is, but whoever it was, the person or group or whatever who did expose it, God bless you. You did the right thing. You did an awesome job, and if anything, you should be rewarded and given a prize for it. Yeah, but Miss Gross wants to destroy you, and her allies do as well. But that's what this was about. And notice that what else did she say? That it only benefits the people being sued. Okay, so her focus is not, what's right and what's wrong. Let's get justice. Let's find out what the truth is and see that justice prevails. Oh no. It's the fact that this exposure of these text messages benefit the people that she doesn't like, and it has a negative effect on the people she supports, and that's all that matters to her. That the people being sued are the ones helped by this, and the people on the other end are the ones hurt by it, and that's all that matters to her. And by the way, I hope that this, as well as other things that have come out, this is not the only exposure, really turn the tide on all of this, and it has the potential to do so. And I really hope all the truth gets exposed. If there's any other little dirty secrets out there, I hope they come out, because the people who are pressing these frivolous lawsuits against the 5 board members who replaced the solicitor earlier in the year, they're behind other lawsuits as well. They have cost the district hundreds. I don't know the exact figure, but I know it's in the upper hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only in monetary, which is all that is, but time, resources, energy, and kept the district tied up in these matters when we could be doing things more constructive. And I believe that the only justice would be to not only see them lose completely, but be forced to pay reparations for all the damage they've done. They should, in the end, have to pay the full legal costs and lawyers' fees of both sides. And they should have to reimburse the district and its communities and its schools every red cent, every single penny that it has cost the district and its communities throughout all this nonsense. They should be forced to pay all of it. Not only because it's the right thing to do to give the district back what it deserves, but also that there's some consequences, because these people will never quit unless there's consequences. It's no different than the schoolyard bully in an elementary school. He doesn't stop when people tell a teacher on him. He stops when somebody gives him a good solid beat down that he needs. And no, I'm not advocating for physical violence, but proverbially speaking, these people need a beat down. Politically, economically, socially, that and so forth. But yeah, but that's what needs to happen. And what we're seeing in our district is disturbing, not surprising at all. The people have talked about what a joke the West Shore School District has become. It hasn't become that. It's been that for a while, folks. What we're seeing is the people who have had a complete monopoly of control on this district and turned it into the clown show that it is. It's all been running under the radar for well over a decade. And finally, when some of the people, the community, started pushing back to try to return to sanity, and these people, it's like, we walked up to a hornet's nest and hit it with a baseball bat, and they're swarming. Now it's becoming unglued. It's coming undone. It's being exposed. So we're seeing the insanity that was there all along, and just now we're privy to it. So what we're seeing is a level of corruption that none of us could have even imagined just a few years ago. And I can tell you, it goes far much. We haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. And hopefully, it all gets exposed and it all gets rectified. And one of the main ways to see that happen is to make sure these elections go the right way. Now, I don't want to stay too focused on this to get off point, but we have 4 school board races coming up this year. The primaries are May 20th, and then of course the general election is November. But it is very important that Kelly Brent and Sandra Gonzalez each win at least one of their primaries to be in the election in November, because we have to have those 2 seats. The other 2 seats have already been forfeited because we have nobody a decent running to oppose the left-wing candidates in those races. But we need Sandra Gonzalez and Kelly Brent to win and to defeat Terry Mickle and Brian Geiswhite. So please get out there on May 20th, because these people are serious. They're very sinister, but they're not stupid. And they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of influence. We've seen literally more than $200,000 already poured into the 2 campaigns for Brian Geiswhite and Terry Mickle. I don't know if you've seen the neon billboard signs all over the district. Yeah, promoting their campaigns. These people have a lot of money and a lot of power behind them. And this is unprecedented for school board races. I mean, on average, for a single board race between just 2 candidates, the total price tag is about $12,000 on average for a school board race. You're talking 6 figures in each of these races before primary day. Don't tell me they're not serious. They feel threatened, and hopefully that threat is legitimate and actually prevails, because it will be the cause of righteousness and the cause of protecting children, restoring education, restoring learning, and getting away from degeneracy and Marxist dogma. But I digress anyhow. But yeah, these tactics you see, led by Danielle Gross, the likes of her and others, these are not something they just came up with. These were tactics invented by actual literal communist activists back in the 1960s. People like Bill Ayers and Saul Alinsky wrote books about this, and how to organize mobs and how to present illusions to make something come into existence that wasn't. Because, see, the left understands political psychology. They know that oftentimes perception becomes reality in the minds of people. They also know that most people, unfortunately, are not leaders or lone decision makers. Most people are followers. So if they are led to believe that the overwhelming majority see something this way, and it's just a few on the fringe who see it the other way, they're going to just follow the majority. And even though the West Shore School District, in reality, if you look at its voting patterns, now, of course, it varies from community to community and from year to year. So I'm not talking about every single case. It goes all over the map. But as a general rule of thumb, overall, collectively, on average, over the last decade or so, the West Shore School District's communities as a whole have always been slightly more to the right than the nation at large. They vote about 2 or 3%, more Republican and conservative third-party candidates than the rest of the country, and 2 to 3% less for Democrats and other left-wing parties than the rest of the country. So we're actually down the middle, but slightly to the right of the nation at large. Yet, until this last board meeting, if you were to see almost any West Shore school, actually every West Shore school board meeting until this last one, where any hot button issue was on the agenda, you would see 5 or 6 common sense, moderate, mainstream conservatives show up, and 100 or more ultra left wing extreme lunatics show up. So you are from the public perception, if you were to know nothing about the West Shore School District and its communities, but for what you saw in these meetings, if you were watching them, you would think we had the political demography of Washington, D.C., or Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington. But no, but that was done on purpose because they're very good at organizing. And we need to start doing the same. I'm not saying emulate their tactics of dishonesty and deception and corruption and illegality. Leave that part alone. But we need to become active like they are. We need to become relentless and motivated like they are, and get out and support our people and our causes actively, and recruit others to do so. And there's so much I want to say, I hardly even know where to go from one step to the next. But this has been, very telling. Again, not at all surprising, but very telling of where she's coming through with this. I recently made another video where I called out Madison Montag of Penn Live for her very dishonest reporting on the last school board meeting. And I have no doubt in my mind that her and Danielle Gross are probably close associates and friends. These people are a tight knit clique, and they will, be united and very active in supporting their causes. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, that what Miss Gross is upset about is an inversion of reality. It is not the people who exposed the text messages and the corruption who are in the wrong. They are the heroes, and they did absolutely nothing illegal or immoral. However, it is the folks pressing these frivolous um, lawsuits about supposed violations of the Sunshine Act by getting a new solicitor. They're the ones involved in corruption and illegalities. In fact, even that issue, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail, but let reality check on the whole Sunshine Act issue. There was no violation of the Sunshine Act. The replacement of the solicitor was something that was discussed at length in public for at least 2 months prior to the vote. And not to mention the fact that there was no need for an RFP, which they were ranting and raving about. The previous solicitor was not under contract. They didn't have to have an RFP. Okay, but I'm going to digress there, but there's so many other issues that there absolutely was not a Sunshine Violation Act. But I tell you what was just exposed with Adam Trone, yeah, I put his name out there now, with Adam Trone and David Brinton, that was a violation of the Sunshine Act, among many other issues that were afoot here. So again, in typical fashion of these Marxist activists like Danielle Gross and her fellow media cronies, they are falsely accusing others of the very actions that they themselves are engaged in. And that also is an actual tactic that is taught in both Dreams of My Fathers by Bill Ayers and Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, two active communists in the 1960s. They actually spelled out tactics to use, and that was one of them, to falsely accuse the person you're opposing of the very actions you yourself are doing to keep them on the defensive and you on the offensive. That is why, and so there's no conscience with these people, because you gotta remember that's what you're dealing with. And that is the mindset and the same cult mentality embraced by Danielle Gross and her affiliates in the local media and Madison Montag and Penn Live and the like. So that's something to keep in mind. And by the way, what's his name? Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals, literally dedicated his book to Lucifer. Okay, there's no accident that these people on the hard left tend to be into religions like Luciferianism, Satanism, witchcraft, Wicca, New Age, paganism, pantheism, and the like, because those spiritual choices, those religions, fall right in line with what they believe in. So this is not only a cultural and political battle we're in, it is a spiritual one as well. And even those who try to stay completely secular and speak about keeping religion out of public matters, they know this too. And many of them hypocritically are in the aforementioned religions that I mentioned, which is why somebody like Bill Ayers, or not Bill Ayers, Saul Alinsky, although they're the same mindset, would dedicate his book to Lucifer, because that's what we're dealing with. That's the level of malfeasance that we're up against. So I just wanted to put all this out there, expose Danielle Gross for what she is, and really call it out, and that she is really put on full display just what her real agenda is and what kind of mindset she has. This is a very, I'm not even being personal here. I don't dislike Miss Gross personally or hate her or anything. It is what it is. She's just highly corrupt and dishonest. But she's not unlike, her colleagues. With very few exceptions to the rule, almost all media figures, nationally and locally, who are part of the legacy corporate media, are of this same mentality, of this same cult, and this same agenda. President Trump was actually very correct a few years ago when they've lost their minds, when he said the media was the enemy of the people. They most certainly are. That's why in recent years, thankfully, the legacy media is losing more and more credibility. It hasn't lost enough. It should lose all credibility. Nobody should watch them or listen to them. But more and more people are abandoning legacy media and going to more independent sources that are more that do what the media is supposed to do: actually investigate and look for the facts, look for the truth, and put the truth out there and expose it. The media is supposed to be our watchdogs. They're supposed to be our whistleblowers, and they're doing just the opposite. The First Amendment, which includes the freedom of the press, our founding fathers put that there, so the media could be just that, so they could expose corruption and expose malfeasance by the political class and public office holders, to keep them honest, to hold their feet to the fire, to ensure that the public was well informed and was able to make good decisions in putting decent people in office. The media anymore is just the opposite. They run cover for corruption. They run cover for malfeasance. They run cover for the people who are doing all the things that nobody should ever want somebody holding public office to do, while simultaneously actively trying to destroy anybody, and successfully have destroyed many people, unfortunately, who do what they're supposed to do, who do the whistleblowing, who do the exposing, who try to keep politicians and the like honest. They're the people they go after and try to destroy. And it's sickening. It's despicable. But thankfully, we do have an up and growing a set of independent sources, nationally and locally, and Lord willing, these sources continue to grow, and the legacy media continues to shrink. I wish it would happen a lot quicker than it is. I mean, even locally here, I mentioned all the sources before: Penn Live, Harrisburg Patriot, York Dispatch, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, all local affiliates. They reach several hundred thousand people every single day. And yet the leftists in the school board meetings are flipping their lids about this tiny little podcast called the Boiling Point Podcast, with slightly over 200 subscribers, most of which don't even live in the district. That's how fearful they are of a little bit of truth being put into the narratives, the false narratives they're trying to spread, because they know that truth doesn't need support. They know that a little bit of light will dispel the darkness. So, folks, keep up the good fight out there. Know who these people are. Know your enemy. We're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to help them. I hope that they see the light and, come to their senses someday, both for their temporal and eternal benefit. But in the meantime, their agenda needs to be fought and destroyed and opposed. And not only what we're against, but what we're for. Replace it with something good. So with that, folks, I don't really have much else to say right now. I got a lot of things on my mind, but I'm trying not to go on too much of a rant. God bless. Have a good night. Talk to you again soon.
Always hasn't wrapped again. I always get caught in my life of sin, but I just keep on going back again. I'm lost again, when all I wanted was to find a friend, someone that I can always depend on to help me find my life again.